Thank you so much for being here, Brianna. I really appreciate your time coming to us from Los Angeles, California. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on, Lisa.
You have such an interesting story, and I just want to start from the beginning. We're going to get to your nonprofit and the work that you do. And, you've been an actress for a very long time, moved out or brought out to Hollywood 27 years ago, right? 27 years ago. So you've been living this dream for a long time. Let's go back to that point and just talk about that start for you. And we'll get to the other good stuff you're doing too.
Oh, goodness. It's such a interesting, like, bizarre situation that I even got into acting professionally, because when I was young, I was actually exceptionally shy. I had cystic acne. I was severely bullied when I was in middle school. Like, the fact that I went and pursued an impossible career and then moved from the suburbs of Minnesota to Los Angeles, I still, when I look at it, I'm like, how did that all line up? But I ended up having tenacity, and I think because of the bullying, because of what that created in me, the grit, I was bold. So I remember being 14 and going through a Yellow Pages and cold calling agencies in Minneapolis to find out how I could be an actress. And the irony is, in middle school, I didn't make any of the school plays because I was too shy to sing beyond the page. I was like terrified. I have vivid memories of like looking at the board where everybody made the play. I mean, I wasn't even a tree. You know what I mean? I was like, I did not make the play.
Right.
And in middle school, and I was like, I'm never doing it again. And there was a student teacher who was a total earth angel. And she said, I think you should try out for the play. She was helping out with the choir. She knew about my situation, and she had moved me into the sophomore choir, the advanced choir, I think in part because she didn't want me to be around the mean girls. Mm-hmm. And then I was one of the very few freshmen that ended up being in the play. And I was chorus for like My Fair Lady. And that was a whole long journey of like overcoming self-doubt and stage fright and all of the different things. But for whatever reason, I had this calling to do it. And I figured out through tenacity and using my OCD to my advantage to like, how do I up level and find the right agency and figure it out? And then at 19, I was at St. Olaf College, which was a big like music and also pre-med school. And I went there specifically so I could audition for things downtown Minneapolis. And my mom's like, if you go there, I'll drive you downtown, which was like 45 minutes away, which of course seems so far when you're used to living in the suburbs. And I ended up having representation that hip pocketed me, which basically meant we will bring you out, we will audition you for things. And this was like, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. This was like pre-YouTube. This is pre-internet, well, the beginnings of the internet. Like
where you had to physically go there and audition.
Oh my God.
Yes.
There was no YouTube. There was no like internet. I was auditioning downtown like for big movies and things like that. And I started getting callbacks. But this is also before nationwide casting was what it is now. It wasn't like there were the hubs around the U.S.
Right.
And around the world that it was then. And so anyway, I was brought out and I ended up getting a handful of things. I'm the first line in Freaks and Geeks, which is a cult classic. It's how I got my SAG card. I got into the union and I ended up doing some crazy family film in Romania. And then I was like, I felt very torn. Like, but I foresaw my life being like this. But if I didn't do this, I was always going to regret it. And
right. So let me ask you about that. So when you have this dream of going, or you start to have this dream in middle school and you're looking for an agent, and then now suddenly you're going to Hollywood and auditioning and starting to get things, which you may not realize is hard to do because it's just happening. Right. So at what point do you start to think like this isn't as easy as it looks, but did it come easily to you? Did you have that sense of, so this isn't as hard as it looks, and I think I could do this my whole life? Or were there challenges enough that you thought, what am I doing here? Maybe I should just go back home.
I have to say, one of the blessings of hardship is that for me, I've always been able to alchemize it to my advantage over time. Not always initially, but over time. Yeah. So I think had my parents been really supportive, had everyone been like, oh, you can do it, and you were the lead of all the plays, and of course you're a star, I would have been like, oh, if I want to come home, I can come home. But because I had the opposite, because I had a grandmother that was passive aggressive and trying to get me to come home, because my parents said sink or swim, because I I think I knew I could work because I had, but then when I actually moved back out and I gained weight and I didn't know how to eat properly and I had Me Too situations up the wazoo before Me Too was even a thing.
Okay.
And I then had the grit and the tenacity to say, like, no, I know I can figure this out and I have to figure this out. And because I'm so darn stubborn.
I was just going to say stubborn. You just dug your heels in and said, I'm not going home. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my parents said sink or swim, while my brother was able to be like, have a totally different trajectory. And so they're like, yeah, let's figure it out. And I think that pull yourself up by your bootstraps, figure it out. And also, it taught me that I didn't need to have a linear way to get to where I wanted to go. And I already had that as a skill set since I was very young, like to think kind of outside the box to get what I wanted to do. And so the fact that I wasn't traditionally trained, I had to pay for myself to get training. I had to figure out like what acting teachers weren't insane because there were so many insane people along the way. And then I started working. But also when I was 19 and 6 months after I came out here, I hurt my back and my neck so badly, I was put on disability. And I was told I would never run again. And so my 20s were like landmines filled of just growth. Whether it was a real estate situation where I was thinking I was investing in my future in my, mid to late 20s, and then suddenly it was a real estate scam and I was $500,000 in the hole. Like it was a thing on a thing on a thing on a thing, plus working, plus getting jobs. And because I had no backup plan and because I didn't have the support of my parents, I mean, they loved me, but I don't come from money.
They weren't going to fund your dream.
No. They would have been like, just come home. And I think they hoped that I just would. And so I figured it out. And that is no coincidence that then I ended up creating goal systems for myself based on what I had done, what I had learned. I mean, I couldn't afford coaches or having certain mentors. And I definitely didn't trust men in the entertainment industry at that age because it was so predatory. Not that there aren't great men, because of course there are, but that's not what I was experiencing at that time. And I saw that the women in Hollywood were like the heightened version of high school, just wildly competitive. And so because of that, I ended up cherry picking women that I thought were the anomaly and were awesome, and created what became a goal group. And the goal accountability group, out of necessity to help myself network authentically and build up and have people that cheered for my successes and where I could be bold to try things. And from that, I ended up starting a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit. So
okay, let's pause there.
Yeah.
Let's pause there because I want to get to that part. I'm passionate about nonprofits. And one of the things I said to you off air is like, you're having this success as an actress, and not everyone who has success, whether it's in acting or other places, goes and thinks, okay, now let me see how I can help others with what I've learned, right? I mean, coaching for sure, we're going to earn a living, right? We're going to figure out how to help others. And, I always call it buckets of passion, and get paid for them and still feel passionate about it. So let's take a break. We want to talk about the nonprofit and the work that you started doing that you continue to do today. Brianna, you were telling us about just your start in Hollywood and how it led to your nonprofit. So let's talk about that. There was something called the New Hollywood that you were part of in the very beginning that led to these other things that you're doing. So do we start with New Hollywood?
Sure.
Okay. Tell us about that.
So to help myself, I always knew that if I wanted to go achieve something, if I brought a team to help me, I'd be more motivated to finish it, whether that was being a youth leader when I was young, or that was being a drug education leader when I was young. Like, I just kind of knew I had that team mentality, choir, soccer, theater. So I knew that about myself to get ahead. And so when I was younger, I had started with my manager's clients and then with groups of friends facilitating the Artist Way book by Julia Cameron. So that became the beginnings of me facilitating groups. And then a girlfriend brought me a goal book and said, hey, will you do this alongside, myself and another friend? And I ended up having to do a movie in Romania. And I said, well, let's just pause this. And when I came back, I said, let's open this up. And that became the beginnings of just this goal setting accountability group. And then it immediately expanded from like 7 people to 15 to 30. And then at certain points it was 60.
Because the need's there, right?
Because the need was there. And at first it was, it was co-ed, and then it became, it's kind of vacillated between just women to co-ed to having, a branch in New York or a branch that was LGBTQ focused or different things like that along the way over the last 20 years.
And do you find too, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you find too that as you facilitate that group, people started to teach you what they needed? Right.
I ended up learning a lot about what people needed, what people didn't need, what was the ways so that someone could hear something. And that's what ended up being the reason that I created a goal book and accountability book myself, was to have something that made sense with our annual format, was something that I felt actually worked, that worked for me. And then I just repeatedly tweaked it. Again, I used my OCD to it, like my advantage. Like I was like, oh, let's use it this way versus the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that became the guidebook, Manifesting Your Mission. And part of the reason for the give back, when we were starting the goal group, I had this feeling of like, it doesn't feel right that we're just making this all about us. And like, I just want to be successful. And how successful am I? I felt like, I don't know, it just didn't resonate fully. So the theme of rise higher, shine brighter, give back became the motto of the nonprofit. And throughout the years, we had different programs, whether it was helping facilitate other people in the entertainment industry, whether it was putting on a showcase, because everyone was basically performers that helped human trafficking or victims. We don't want human trafficking, having human trafficking victims, to helping with, different environmental issues. And then it became more streamlined. And at a certain point, I thought, well, now that we've hit this, the precipice of where we're at with these groups of women and where we're at, I'm like, let's really help the demographic that needs it the most. And so I was like looking at what or other organizations I wanted to work with or who we could help and beta test it with. And we ended up working with Harvest Home, which helps homeless moms. And so we had already done some work with them. I'd reached out and I beta tested a format of what we do within the other group, and using similar tools, but with a much more hands-on emphasis. And that we're helping formerly homeless single moms with grants, goals, and mentorship, because 50% of single moms live below the poverty line. And this demographic is most likely to, fall into being incarcerated, human trafficking victims, or, homeless again. So I thought this is a demographic that really needs it and really want the ones that want to have help and have support and build community. So we've created just a really beautiful opportunity for women that want that sort of additional support that I've been able to replicate with women who have more privilege.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then. So then the split there. So is what we were talking about at the beginnings, that was the New Hollywood. Mm-hmm. That's what you called yourselves. And then it branched out into the Manifesting Your Mission. That's the .org. That's the nonprofit. That's your website. And so
the nonprofit was the New Hollywood. The New Hollywood has always been the nonprofit. And then what I did is I took the mastermind group, and then I segued it into my coaching business, because I wanted to stay with the 501c3, to stay with
got it.
Giving back.
Okay. So then when you're doing this work and you're starting to, thank you for clarifying that. When you're doing this work and you're starting to think about who you're impacting, and like we said, they start to teach you what they need, what are some of the transformations that you've seen just that helped you adapt the curriculum, if you will, the support that you're giving them, the modalities to achieve the goals? So what are some of the things that you thought were going to work and maybe didn't, or some of the things that have worked beyond what you could have imagined?
Well, with specifically that demographic, what I realize is every time I get a new cohort, every time I get new people in, I have to start fresh, because I don't know what their baseline is. I don't know what their trauma is. I don't know what their experience is with trusting women. It helps that we have veterans in who've done it long enough that they can lead by example, and also remind them, like, this is a safe space. These women walk the walk, so they're not just going in blind. So I just have to kind of see, like, where are they at? So is it finance? Is it health and wellness? Is it, relationship situation? So I kind of have to figure that out. And then we look at what is most urgent and important that they need to address first, because usually they have major fires. So whether that's really chronic health issues where trying to go and get a job, sustaining a job doesn't make sense because they have to address their health issues. So through that, through seeing what we need, I then have reached out to people that I have connections with, whether that was something like my friend Free Dominguez, who has a program called Adopt a Kitchen that helps with how to make healthy anti-inflammatory food, same price point as fast food, with an Instapot. Like, we did that program, and now it's an evergreen module for all future people. Or, for example, I see health as a big one for the ladies because a lot of them do live in food deserts and don't yet know how to cook, and their time is limited. So one of the things that I was working on for the past 2.5 years was working with 2 other nutritionists, and one has a fitness expertise as well as an oncology and functional medicine emphasis, and one is a chef. I created a thing called Wellness Babes, which we just launched, and that's actually for the public, and then it's also for these ladies get it free, and so it's a course plus they get the monthly calls, so they're getting more information, because again, I'm seeing a lot of them will have kids that are struggling with ADHD or certain attention issues. And so what I've seen is it's a lot of the smaller tweaks that maybe we would go read a self-help book, but when you're in survival mode, the idea of going and reading a self-help book just doesn't make sense. So this is creating the space of saying, okay, if you're going to read a book, this is the one for where you're at right now, which, as a coach, you're like, give me that fast track.
Yeah. And that's what coaching really is, right? It's that fast track, or in this case, I think too, and I've worked with more health type situations in patients where, when you're in crisis, it's a hard time to learn, but at the same time, it's when you're sometimes reaching out for those resources. And there's so much information now compared to what information was available when you started out and when I started out, that it some of the time it's just disseminating. Some of the time it's just handing it over and saying, I've read 10 books. This is the best one for what you're going through. Or I've done this course, or I've done this thing. For me, it's patient and caregiver advocacy that I worked in for so long. And then you teach them how to do that for themselves, but in little pieces. It's like your first doctor's appointment, using the portal for communication, like these different things along the way. Because if you look at the whole big picture of a medical crisis or whatever crisis, it's pretty overwhelming to even know where to start. And you're right, to hire a coach, it's quite expensive, and it most certainly wouldn't happen for these women in particular.
No, and that is the thing that a lot of them have said, even on video and testimonials, saying like, this sort of information is not accessible for people like me, for my community. So for us to be really supportive, and we're hands-on, we check in with them Monday through Friday. They get a monthly call. So they feel really supported and in teams, so that they don't feel so alone. Because I know that that's been a big thing for me, is how do I create community to be able to take risks and do things and get outside my comfort zone, and also move through my resistance, right? And I agree with you with the health stuff. I mean, my father died of cancer when I was in my 20s. I had multiple issues with health. My mother has a major health issue. So health has been something, health and wellness is like the thing that I feel like is one of the most important things to work on, to have energy and vitality and to achieve what you want to achieve. Because if you don't have that, as you know.
Nothing changes things around than to lose that. And it's unfortunately one of those things you don't really appreciate sometimes until you lose it or start to lose it. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, I just want to finish up and just wrap up this conversation with you. It's been so informative, and just, I love the work that you're doing. Like I said, to have the success you've had and then to still be giving back, that's the kind of conversation I love to have. So we'll be back in just a moment. Brianna, we are finishing up with you, and I just want to make sure that we differentiate the work that you do that is accessible either way. It's accessible because you can work with anyone throughout the country, throughout the world, really. But there are some resources available in a nonprofit fashion, and they're the resources that are available that is part of your coaching business. Can you differentiate the two, please?
Yes. So thenewhollywood.org, which has been around for 20 years, and it is helping formerly homeless single moms with grant schools and mentorship. If you want to get involved, to volunteer, to donate, if you have a business that you think would want to help accelerate what we're doing with our impact, go to thenewhollywood.org. If it's something that you want for yourself or a loved one, it's manifestingyourmission.org. Wellness Babes is also under that umbrella. So I have multiple communities. I have the Wellness Babes, which is the health and wellness, which is also wellnessbabes.org, or it's going to manifestingyourmission.org just to not make it so crazy under the shop page. I also have the Thriving community, which is for younger artists who are wanting to create their own material. That's with another facilitator who is a casting executive and a coach. And then I have the Mastermind Goal Group, which has been also around for 20 years, and that's more high level. But for people that are not in that, are not brought into that, I have a 12-week that I do with small groups. I also can do one-on-one privates. I've done hands-on workshops, virtual and also in person. And I have people all around the country. And I've even had clients who own colleges in India. So it's all over. But I've tried to make it really accessible. And then if something like that is maybe not in your budget, just using my guidebook is something that you can do. And you can sign up for my newsletter at manifestingyourmission.org, and you'll be included in all the information. And I'm also a Reiki practitioner. So I do a little, long distance Reiki once a month that I just started. It's so fun and witchy. But these are things that have helped me be grounded and use my creativity for good. So I'm not, being a crazy actress worried about fine lines every minute or something stupid.
Yeah. Well, that helps. That helps. Well, I definitely appreciate your time and sharing with us. And I think anytime that we can be successful and find a way to help other people along the way, whether it's the way that we earn our living or it's the way that we give back to people who don't have the access to the work that we would otherwise be doing, I think that's a good thing. These are the conversations, like I said, that I love to have. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your time and your expertise in all the things.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And can I tell you how beautiful that wall is behind you? It's
Isn't it great?
The most beautiful color I think I've ever seen.
It's because it goes to all of my skin tone.
It's so pretty. So pretty. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.